All right, so this is our first introduction session. Welcome. We're gonna try to speed it up now. We've lost just a few minutes. We don't want to waste everyone's time. So thank you all for joining. Again, this is something we're very passionate about, and I think we're very excited to share this with you. If it's something that resonates with you, then we'd love to walk a journey with you in this thing. If it's something that you feel someone else on your heart whilst we sharing this, then please do point them in our direction or other way around. So these are just a few talking points that we're going to be talking about tonight. We're gonna run through items 1 to 9, and probably we're gonna try and go for about 40 minutes, and then have question and answers in the end. So we're gonna try to give I'm gonna say as summarized but as concise run through of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to not sell to you but introduce to you in this time, and I guess that's how we're starting.
So I think the first bit is just gonna jump off with who we are. So I think 100% of the people who are on this call, maybe 95, know Martin but have no idea who I am. Christy, we have a little bit of interactions from high school days, but so I'm Jason. I have a massive heart for adventure. I've done a few crazy things in my life, and I'm a big dreamer of like just God's dreams and stuff like that. I'm a teacher at Hatfield Christian Church, doing online school now, so I came straight from the office at home, still in the goodies. But massively passionate about people, and specifically, and we'll share a little bit more about that mentorship thing, but just specifically coaching and building a relationship with young guys, and mentoring them. So that's a big part of my heart, and just I love adventure, hiking, all of that awesome stuff.
I think most people on this call know me, so I'll be a lot more brief. But me and Jason know each other obviously from school, and I think where this thing came from is probably just an overflowing of good fathering and mothering. Not that I have to say it because they're on the call, but it's definitely come out of an overflowing where other people's come out of other places. Mine's definitely come from an overflowing. I've got a passion for music, a passion for young people and people in general. So that's basically me, if you didn't know that.
Awesome.
I'm going to share it again, bro.
So I think what we will do is just with that space, talk a little bit about how we got to where we are at now in terms of the just want to share a screen.
It's on the
here.
back there, bro. I guess you got
in terms of just the background of where we are at and how we got to this point in our journey. So basically it started with a dream from my side to do this massive paddle adventure around South Africa, and sometimes I can get a little bit ahead of myself, and so started planning towards this paddle and thinking, and we had conversations probably about 3 years ago. Our journey started in terms of talking about this, and there are a whole bunch of testimonies that lead to that point, but we started meeting, having coffee, and started planning, and from my side it was more the adventure of the thing, and with Martin it became more about the cause. And share that.
So where it came to me, I mean, Jason obviously came really passionate about some crazy adventures that he had in his mind, and obviously I've got probably a little bit of crazy in myself too, so I was 100% keen, but then came the point as to why we're doing this. And when Jason asked me and he said, this is something we're praying into, I immediately knew what it was. It was something, obviously, the Lord had been working with me, and most of you who are on this call know that it's been something that's been sort of knocking on my heart's door for a couple of years. I just didn't know how to sort of channel it. I didn't know where it was going to fit in. And yeah, so obviously we started talking about it, and we we had a bit of a tactical break, unplanned. I moved jobs and it was kind of difficult, so we went on a bit of a pause. I've got a new participant.
Welcome, Yaku.
Welcome, Yaku. Sorry, we just on point 2, giving a bit of background. So that's it. Took a bit of a back seat, I'd say. Jason got married, which is impressive.
Yeah.
But the dream and the passion didn't die. It was definitely still there, and we realized that from speaking to people, most of you and other people, and we realized that this passion and this dream for mentorship and that sort of thing isn't only a passion of ours. It's something that's shared amongst lots of young men. So we knew something had to be done, and that led us sort of to the next point, as that we cannot do this alone. So yeah, that's basically why we are here tonight.
Yeah, and yeah, so just kind of from that space, we want to chat a little bit into the why of this movement. And I think there's such a big reality in globally, but also specifically in South Africa, in terms of like the whole heart of fatherlessness in South Africa. And some people are sitting here in this room tonight having been deeply affected or growing up without a father, and perhaps others have come from, like Martin was saying, an overflow. And so the issues and the heart of fatherlessness is big in South Africa and has a massive knock-on effect that I believe has shaped society today and men in society in very negative ways. And so our hearts has really been stirred into this, and to actually be wanting to make a difference. Like, how can we be pushing into this issue, reaching out to guys and doing filling that gap that's left with that. So the journey of becoming a man, it's so integral in terms of having a father, but where there isn't that, we want to establish a movement and an organization that kind of fills that gap, teaching young men to be to be raised by these mentors, obviously in that same space, to raise mentors to be able to fill those gaps, that we could get this movement going across the nation, dreaming big in that space. Now,
and I think just to add to that about filling the gap, there's many ways to fill the gap. And I think something that we'll be pursuing quite hard is to fill it in a relevant way for young men. And it's not just this sort of burden thing. We actually joke about it quite a lot. But the heart behind this thing is not for young guys to feel like they're a project, or it's a Alcoholics Anonymous or something like that, but that they're part of something bigger, where they've sort of been left behind because of a lack of fathering or teaching or mentoring, but that there's been no sort of positive inspraak in their lives. And so I guess filling the gap is an important point as to how we do that.
Yeah.
Jason obviously spoke about teaching young men to be men. We actually joked about that being one of our possible names, Men Be Men. But it's just so real, because it goes both ways. Men being men often ignore the responsibilities, and we've spoken to a couple of organizations who actually focus on calling men back to being men, which is obviously a part of what we a part of the I'm going to say the family or the body, but our body is obviously more focused towards the young guys. Then moving into connecting to connect young men with mentors.
Yeah. No, with grassroots.
Oh, sorry, are we at that point? Yeah. Okay. So I think we skipped one. Establishing beacons of light. I mean it's not a massive point, but I guess what coming back to our name, which we'll get to in a bit, establishing beacons of light. What does that mean? Obviously, we read the Bible and we know that light is such a powerful image. But what does that mean in a city? What does it mean in Pretoria, Mamelodi? What does it mean in Cape Town? What does it mean to our country? And becoming beacons of light starts with small lights. So our vision is obviously to start small lighthouses, which build bigger lighthouses, which build a big light. Which is that third to last point. Then rebuilding a nation kind of ties into that. So our focus, many people ask, why are we looking at 16 to 18? And we feel that's sort of like that age group is critical in terms of young men not really knowing who they are yet, but that's the point where they discover who they are. And how do you discover who you are if you don't have the questions answered that you have? How do you answer those struggles that you work through? I don't know, just a solid and I want to say biblical foundations. But how do you fix our country if you don't start with the youth? So for us, it's obviously a massive point. Especially, I'm getting a little bit deviated, but if you're talking about the race card or all of the struggles that we've got at the moment, not only in our country but in the world, that need to be tackled, and it all comes down to identity, and identity all comes back to mentorship and fatherhood. So last point, lack of reaching out, and I think that's a massive point as to what's making us different. There are many organizations who reach out to people and who reach out to young people or older people or both. But my big question was, and our big question was, and I can ask that to you, is we've all been through high school, and how many of you through your 5 years of high school have been approached or asked, how's it going at home? Are you struggling? You've lost a father, you've lost a mentor. There's no reaching out. And I guess being disciples, making disciples and having that commission of going out is kind of the point, and what makes this, I'm going to say, slightly different. Not trying to make it different, but where there's a lack.
Yeah.
So that's something that we really want to tackle and actively tackle with schools and the various organizations.
Yeah. So I think you've been hearing the word Lighthouse Brothers and stuff. I think one of the big things that we've been trying to put down for quite a while is the name. And we've had all kinds of crazy names that have come up. But one that really, really stuck was this idea of Lighthouse Brothers. And so there's two sides to this. The name is built up of two parts. Specifically Lighthouse, and secondly Brothers, and the whole idea and the beautiful imagery of a lighthouse is that a lighthouse is something that prevents you or steers you away from destruction. So a lighthouse, in one sense, while it is and can be a safe space, it leads you to a harbor. And from there you find your safety. And I think with that mentorship and discipleship journey being that harbor to helping young men, and just the imagery of shining a light is really cool. And then secondly, Brothers is with mentorship. Obviously, having older guys mentor one as a fatherly role is so key, but also to have younger guys who have this heart, who as brothers are coming alongside each other. Sometimes, one could feel like if you're attending Alcoholics Anonymous that you may be more a victim, and if you say, like, for the fatherless, one feels a bit more like a victim. But if you say, like, we're a brotherhood, we're doing this together, it's really, really encouraging in that space, and taking each other's hands and walking together along this road. So I think with that is just the community around that as well, having that brotherhood and being in a space that you can talk to others and have places where you can go about this and not feel ashamed about it, but rather actually feel encouraged. Like, are you part of this movement?
Yeah, that brings us to the structure, which is obviously quite an important one and something that we are still developing, and I guess why we're looking to you guys in this call as well, but to help us develop this as well. What we've come to this point is obviously these eight items we've got written down here, and we'll just quickly read through them and discuss them.
And I think with this as well is, we've planned a lot and talked about these things, but by no means is this the concrete foundations upon which everything is going to be. It's an idea and a structure and a framework, and I think part of tonight's meeting is also hearing from you and seeing insights and perspectives that will help us be able to shape this thing moving forward. So this is just what we've looked at so far.
Yeah, so the first point, the intention is, and we said it before, we'll get to that point, but it's actually item 5, but is not to reinvent the wheel. So there's many partners and organizations that already exist that we feel our organization would strengthen and also would be partnering with. We spoke to some people from World Needs a Father actually earlier this week again, and they're very excited about that. There's a lot of material also available from them, but the point is that we'd be working in conjunction with a lot of these guys. The intention is to partner with existing organizations. As I said, World Needs a Father, Character Company. There's a couple of guys that we've already spoken to that are quite interested in getting involved. Individuals like yourselves, people through churches, NGOs, schools. Obviously schools are a massive one. Some of the guys who are on this call are from Boys Eye, and we spoke about that, saying that we've got a new headmaster that just started there, engaging with him, and someone we've already got an existing relationship with, and identifying through him people that have a lack or a need. And similar through the churches who have connections to schools within the townships, which is obviously a massive focus for us in engaging with those schools as well. As we said, NGOs and communities in need. Obviously, this is a bigger thing than just having one school, but we want to start with and cluster them together. So, as an example, and it'll become clearer as we speak, but as an example, if we had to go to a school and identify a couple of guys through either our organization that have already been screened or whatever, we'll get to that still, or through a church who we also partner with. There might be a leader through this church who will sort of facilitate the men that get screened and who partner with us in this organization or in this movement. So that kind of just speaks about who and the different moving parts within this body.
Yeah, and I think, what does that look like? The heart would be to meet on a weekly or bi-weekly basis in connecting. So having these moments where guys are connecting in small groups and monthly in bigger groups to kind of feel the sense of that bigger, broader part of community. And what does that look like? Does it mean coming together and just chatting? Like, our hearts are really to see, let's play touch rugby, let's do stuff that's fun, that you kind of have the adventure and boyhood element of just exercise and doing life together.
A non-rigid sort of, that's.
And that's what it could look like within the bigger connections, sort of similar events, connecting in that space. So this could really build up to an annual event, which could be really, really epic. And we'll talk about it further in the Dream Big part, but having all of these lighthouses come together in an annual event. When have you heard of an event that talks specifically into fatherhood where a whole nation arrives? and yeah, I think just what this nation needs is places and spaces like that, and events that encourage this, and teach men to be men.
Yeah, I think we sort of spoke about the image of I want to say a mighty men equivalent for youngsters. And what that could mean. I mean, we've spoken about adventure camps, worship celebrations, all these sorts of things. Introducing boys to this, as Jason said earlier, small groups is sort of the relationship building. The monthly bigger groups, the guys in a community with a sort of a slightly bigger part of the lighthouse, will obviously encourage that accountability between guys who might see each other in the townships, and they'll be like, oh, that guy's also part of Lighthouse Brothers, or, that sort of picture. And then the bigger annual thing just gives a bigger sense of family, saying we're part of something bigger within this country, and we're part of a bigger movement than just ourselves.
Yeah.
I think item 4, which is our core syllabus, which we've spoken about earlier, the idea wouldn't be just to go in there and say, guys, okay, tell us what are your issues. Let's address those. We really want to structure this in a good way, and get a core syllabus set together. So as we spoke earlier about World Needs a Father, and how there's the syllabus the guys are willing to share with us, and that is available to develop. We'd like to develop that along with some other resources from other organizations, and make it applicable to the heart that we're trying to tackle here.
Yeah, that's it. I think just kind of finishing off with a couple of those things we've already roughly mentioned, with an NGO being established, so starting out and registering that as an official NGO or NPC, starting in Gauteng with the hopes and dreams of going nationwide. So with that obviously comes the collaborative leadership team. It's not just two guys who's going to do it. We want guys on board with perspective and heart, that we can kind of navigate this thing together as a big picture. And I think if somebody finds out about Lighthouse Brothers, but they are, I don't know, staying in Da'ar, then they've got somebody in Da'ar to connect with, or they've got somebody in the crew that they can connect with these spaces. So having guys in those spaces, and obviously what Martin mentioned is just potential mentors being screened with existing resources.
Yeah, screening is obviously an important point. I had a discussion with a guy from World Needs a Father earlier this week who shared a shocking stat. He said that until up to the age of 16, the percentage of sexual child abuse of boys is way higher than girls. Only after 16 it starts changing to girls, which I wouldn't imagine that, which is quite scary. And I mean, so obviously that shows that there's a need, but it also shows that we need to be careful as to who's going to be part of this. So screening is a very important part, and having sort of those lighthouse leaders in the smaller areas would be quite pivotal to making sure that we've got the right the right crowd and getting the right message through.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So
what's going on here, bro? Oh, that's cool. I don't know, does it?
So just kind of looking and thinking about what do we need? Like, what do we need to get this thing going? And I think that the reality is we cannot do this alone.
Yeah.
We need perspective, we need insight, we need hands, we need all of these things. So we're just going to run through a couple of these kind of points, and just very briefly, we've sent this document already that kind of explains more of these portfolios, but an info team, awareness and motivation, community engagement, networking, resources and database. So talking into some of those things that Martin was mentioning now with the video resources and curriculum, marketing and media. I mean, it's so integral to getting this message out in a beautiful way. I mean, we live in a world that is we see so much advertising every day, to be able to be making impactful media with the giftings that God has given us. If you find yourself in a space that God has put you there doing media, like, let's work together in getting this thing out. Obviously, training, I think that was perhaps more related also to the paddle adventure as well. But
I think also in terms of training, that's the part of the screening.
Yeah.
So an important part of the training is how we see that there'll maybe be a sort of a short course or a module that you go through one of the leaders or something that sort of just equips you to know what you're supposed to say, what you're supposed to do, what happens if, sort of thing. Because there'll be a lot of situations where maybe someone opens up about something you don't know much about. So I think that's where training is really important, an important part of what we need.
Yeah.
Then we've got a finance team, which is obviously, we're still starting off, and currently there's not a massive inflow of funds yet, but there's not a massive outflow either. So we're lucky. We're trying to work this thing easy, but when we do get to a point where we do need to start purchasing resources and sharing it and building on a bigger marketing platform, then obviously fundraising would be important, and one of the parts to this is what Jason was mentioning, sort of the adventure part, and doing things like this to raise awareness for this and to raise financing for this cause, and which obviously ties into sponsorship as well. So what we did want to mention about this, and there's obviously the points are broken up to quite well in the document that we had. But we want to emphasize that we're not limiting this to only that. The point of these portfolios is really that the sky is the limit. Something that's always sort of been. It was about 2 years ago where I got the word, where I was sort of humbled to hold back, but it was that in 2 Corinthians 9 verse 5, I think, and it just spoke about how we've been equipped, but He'll send others who are equipped before to prepare the way. And I didn't quite know what that meant until a couple of months ago when my brother got involved in this, who's obviously a bit better in marketing stuff than us. And what that means is there's people who are way better equipped in some of these sort of needs than us, and we're not dictating anything. The point is that people need to buy into the greater mission and the greater heart, and that sort of allows them to run with each of the needs or portfolios that we need to have this thing successful. Obviously, each person's got his own gifting. We're all talented in different ways, so. Maybe someone's better at finance and others are better at getting people excited. So we want to build off that thing. Another thing we do want to mention, and we've got 2 women, I think, on this call. One is my mother and one is my sister-in-law. I think she's still on the call, but it's not set to only men being part of the core of this organization and part of this movement. So there are other ladies who are also interested in assisting and quite good at marketing and information and administration strength. So that's just something we thought to mention. So these are things we'd like each person to pray about and think about. And if there's someone who stands out, if it's not you, then as I said, to sort of push them in our direction. I think that's the main point of this. But where we are at the moment is we can't move forward without, we can, but we're very limited to moving forward. We've sort of hit our plateau. Being a teacher and a construction project manager, we need more than what we have.
Yeah. So I think what we've looked at is a bit of a timeline for how we envision this happening. and we've put an idea together here that we'd love to have the first lighthouse set up by the 1st of September. And it sort of seems crazy because that's like now, but the need is now. You know, fatherlessness doesn't wait for next week. It's here now, and this issue is what we're facing. So,
yeah. So obviously in that we've targeted the 1st of September. If we're not ready, we're not ready. But the point is that we want to shoot for something. So if we draw a line in the sand, we can target to reach it. And if we fall short with a couple of weeks or a month or so, then that is that. But what we've said to actually get our first lighthouse going, which could potentially be 1, 2, or 3 boys and 2 mentors. What we need to get that in place is to formalize the curriculum, which if we have the right people involved and we have the right resources, we could at least get the first part of our curriculum at least in place.
Yeah.
To start with it, you know, a lot of the I mean, there's going to be a big learning curve to doing this process, and it's not something we're going to have perfected or ironed out the day we start. So we'd like to get going and get started, and to build those partnerships is the second point with the school or organization or church. We've got some thoughts about where to start. Obviously, the low-bearing fruit. To trial it, and then obviously the training of volunteers, which is going to be an ongoing process. So that's sort of what we've been thinking about, and obviously open to discussion and open to input from other people, and yeah, I guess that's our target.
Yeah.
There is obviously a greater timeline, which we could still develop and grow, but we'd like to grow that in the core of our movement.
So just getting to this big and the dreaming big part, I think this is also that gets people excited, is as thinking that the sky is the limit, to really dream big with this thing. And perhaps there's even things that have stood out in your heart with regards to fatherlessness and this issue that we haven't thought about here, that you thought, you know, maybe this event or this thing is actually gonna hit it well. And yeah, man, to really, I mean, I've got such a desire for that mentorship and discipleship that I've even just thought, like, what about starting a school? And starting that boys' school, the adventure school, where you've got guys talking into these issues, and you know, wherever the guys are coming from, and just those spaces to be talking into this. We've talked about weekly and monthly celebrations and meetings with these the Mighty Boys camps. Just put some names to it, but adventure camps as well. If you think about those moments on school camps that you've been on, and these teaching moments that are so integral to our growth as men, how we could facilitate this, that could really change a young man's future. So
I think also, and we've sort of touched on that under marketing, and we keep talking about adventure. You know, we've had, and Jason mentioned the paddle earlier. But I mean, the sky is the limit. Anyone who's involved or anyone who's excited about that, we could use adventure to draw attention to this thing and to raise money for whatever's needed at that point, and sort of just to, I think, give the boys something to look up to. We've spoken about the lack of role models, but I mean, if we just look into our country at the moment, probably the biggest role model is Sia Kulisi or someone, you know, like it's there's a desperate lack of mentors or role models in the public scene or in sort of the public eye, and I guess it doesn't mean that we're trying to be famous or trying to go in the public eye, but just the boys that we're interacting with, to give them something that to look up to or to inspire them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what we'd love to do, just as we kind of round up in that space, is to hear some feedback from you guys. Obviously, we're going to have a Q&A now, but just by next week, Wednesday, if there's to go and pray about this whole movement and things from here, but within the week to say, I've got an idea for this, or have you guys thought about that? And I've got a friend who's connected with here. Let's put them in contact. And so just kind of like whatever stirs in your heart to give feedback to us by them. And just this reality of to start building with what we've got.
I actually put that thing. I stole it from the guys who wrote The Chosen. That guy, I can't remember what his name is, Jenkins or something.
Yeah.
But he gave a story, and I think it's relevant or applicable to this as well, where he was sort of challenged with what can he give, what does he have to give, and at that time he was said, well, all you need to give is the loaves and the fishes. The Lord will multiply what you're giving. So, I mean, even if you feel you like really swamped at work, and that sort of thing, there's always capacity with even the 5 minutes that you are able to give, or with the odd sending an email on behalf of, and that sort of thing. So it doesn't mean that it's a full-time call. Maybe it is. Yeah. I know some people even on this call have mentioned that this is what they've been waiting for, and this is where they'll want to go. Maybe giving up what they're busy with, because this is something that's real. This is something that's going to make a change.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of what I meant with fatherless. And another point that I wanted to make with fatherless isn't new. It was actually last week I shared with Jason. I read in Zechariah 1, and it just spoke about. I actually wrote it down here somewhere, but it says. I actually didn't write it down somewhere, but it just spoke about it just spoke about like, where are the fathers, and obviously there was a context to that, but it stood out to me and where we are now. It just says where are the fathers. Don't follow the fathers who have stumbled or haven't listened or haven't been obedient to the call or the word of the Lord. So fatherlessness isn't new. But the way we approach it needs to be new, I think.
And relevant. Yeah.
So, and that last thing, obviously, that takes us to go and meet and engage with partners. That's what's next.
Yeah.